Trump makes deals. According to him, the best deals.
If you can't make a good deal with a politician, then there's something wrong with you.
And I'm a very good deal maker, believe me.
I do hundreds of deals. The deals come out of my ears. Deal maker.
Deals.
Deals. Deal.
And now Trump is focused on his next deal, peace in Ukraine.
I want to get peace. We want to get that war over with. I think we're on the way to getting peace. I want the war to stop. That is a war that's dying to be settled.
But what would a peace deal brokered by the notorious dealmaker president actually look like? And would it be the best deal for Ukraine? What goes into making a peace deal to end a war? Let's imagine each party's interests are contained within circles of a Venn diagram. If one side is overwhelmingly victorious, then they dictate the terms most favorable to them. In the case of a stalemate or a conflict risking undesirable escalation, both sides may be willing to negotiate an agreement that strives for some kind of equilibrium between their positions. So, where does that leave us?
You need to set your goals. You need to figure out what you want to accomplish, and you need to step into the other side's shoes. And the idea in a negotiation, of course, is to find the sweet spot and the mutual interests where those goals overlap.
For this story, we need to turn to Afghanistan, where Trump negotiated a now infamous peace deal during his first presidency. As the Afghan government collapsed and the Taliban took over, desperate Afghans clung to an aircraft as the last of the American troops departed Kabul airport on August 30th, 2021. This is what the US Taliban peace deal, negotiated by Trump, looked like in practice. After nearly 2 decades of American military presence and over 2,000 American lives lost, America effectively surrendered Afghanistan back to the Taliban. This negotiated withdrawal was viewed as such a disaster that even the Trump officials behind the deal quickly distanced themselves from it. But it was never supposed to end this way.
On my orders, the United States military has begun strikes against military installations of the Taliban regime in Afghanistan.
For nearly 20 years, Americans were told they were winning the war.
I want us to remember why we went to Afghanistan. We achieved our central goal, which is to decapacitate al-Qaeda.
In response to the 9/11 terrorist attacks in 2001, the US troops successfully overthrew the Taliban government, which had harbored the al-Qaeda terrorist network, and undertook a decade-long effort to build a new, democratic government in Kabul. But even within the US own military, many started to find the war aimless. General Douglas Lute, who oversaw the Afghan war under Bush and Obama, told an inspector general in 2015 that we were devoid of a fundamental understanding of Afghanistan. We didn't know what we were doing, he said. But one man was poised to seize the public's war fatigue and military ranks frustrations. The Kyiv Independent is only able to do what we do, including making videos like the one you're watching right now, thanks to the support from our members. Now, more than ever, independent journalism needs your help. In Ukraine and around the world, truth is how we fight back the darkness. And if you believe in what we do, consider donating or becoming a member today. And now let's get back to the video.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States.
My original instinct was to pull out, and historically, I like following my instincts.
As early as 2011, Trump started posting tweets opposing the Afghan war and focusing on mounting financial costs and lost lives. Sounds familiar? Yeah, that's because he has made similar arguments on ending support for Ukraine.
And peace talks are now underway. I am not looking to kill hundreds of thousands of people. I just don't want to kill 10 million people. To at least try for peace. Thousands of young people are being killed every week. I want to stop people from getting killed. That war has to be stopped. That war is a disaster. I think in terms of getting it settled so we stop killing all these people.
Trump's long career making business deals, deals he considered
good deals, most of them are phenomenal deals,
would be tested. February 2020 brought the parties to Doha, Qatar, just as the world was plunging into a global pandemic. US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo was in attendance. However, voices within Trump's administration opposing his approach to the deal, such as National Security Advisor John Bolton, were excluded. And while the United States officials met with the Taliban, the actual Afghan government, which had been backed by the Americans for nearly 20 years, was excluded from the conversations. Negotiations between governments, especially those at war, often center on each side trying to concede as little as possible, protect their sovereignty, and still achieve the majority of their objectives. So, what terms did the United States agree to in its deal with the Taliban? Trump agreed to a full withdrawal of US troops within 14 months. Sanctions against the Taliban would be reviewed and lifted within 3 months. They also agreed to a prisoner swap that would release 5,000 Taliban fighters held by the Afghan government, the government which was not party to the negotiations. And what did the United States get in return? The Taliban agreed to cut ties with the terrorist groups, particularly Al-Qaeda, which they didn't. They also committed to ceasefire negotiations with the Afghan government, but instead they escalated their attacks. And while the US repeatedly stated it does not recognize the Taliban as a state, the Taliban has become the rulers of Afghanistan whether the US recognizes them or not. By excluding the Afghan government from the negotiations, it became clear the Trump administration was withdrawing its support, therefore re-energizing the Taliban. Stripped of US backing, the Afghan government had to deal with the Taliban alone, without any leverage. Despite the Taliban not adhering to the agreement, the Trump administration pushed forward with a deal, which President Joe Biden adhered to when he took office. It all feels paradoxical, considering the US's stated goals in Afghanistan and its dominant position in the negotiations. It seems Trump gave away a lot without anything in return. Women's rights came under attack, with the Taliban banning them from secondary education and many workplaces, and enforcing strict dress codes. Independent journalism was stifled. Public protests were banned. Religious minorities faced renewed discrimination and persecution. Much of what America had spent 2 decades and thousands of lives trying to build evaporated almost overnight, and the country was handed back over to the very group the United States once set out to dismantle. According to a former Afghan general, the Trump administration's lack of communication with the Afghan government gave the Taliban space to spread misinformation about the deal. In some cases, local Afghan police and military forces abandoned their posts, believing the Taliban's claims that the US had handed over their territory as part of the agreement. Now, fast forward to another war, Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and we're seeing a familiar playbook unfold once more.
The goal of diplomatic negotiations is to find whether or not there is a sweet spot that really accomplishes all of their goals, and those goals need to be accomplished in a way that is better than what they're going to do if they don't do any deal at all. So if your plan B, your alternative to a diplomatic solution, is better than a possible diplomatic solution, plan B being war, then you're going to keep on engaging in armed conflict.
Just like with the Afghan government, Trump is now negotiating directly with America's adversary, Putin. As with the Doha Accords with the Taliban, the Trump officials who don't fully support his agenda, like the Special Envoy for Ukraine and Russia, Keith Kellogg, have been excluded. Key negotiation positions such as Ukraine's NATO membership or recovery of occupied territories were preemptively traded away by the Trump administration for nothing in return.
From President Trump's perspective, as it relates to the Ukraine-Russia war, conflict situation, he just wants a deal. I don't really believe that President Trump wants anything other than a deal. I don't think he cares so much about the details of the deal as long as he will get the international credit for bringing the parties together and stopping the hostilities.
The United States does not believe that NATO membership for Ukraine is a realistic outcome of a negotiated settlement.
President Trump he really does have a very good and deep understanding of leverage in most negotiations. The more desperate you are, the weaker your leverage. So the more desperate they are, the stronger your leverage.
This is not the first time Ukrainians have tried negotiating with the Kremlin. after Russia's initial invasion of Ukraine in 2014, international partners brokered two unfavorable for Ukraine deals with Moscow in 2014 and in 2015, the Minsk I and II protocols. Lacking any security guarantees, both ceasefire deals were broken by Russia, leading to Ukraine losing more and more territory.
You're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards.
When President Zelensky expressed concerns that Russia would violate a ceasefire, as it had in the past, Trump brushed it off with annoyance.
What if anything? What if a bomb drops on your head right now? What if they broke it? I don't know. They broke it with Biden because Biden, they didn't respect him. They didn't respect Obama. They respect me.
Following the meeting, the Trump administration played games with military aid to Ukraine, sending a clear signal to Russia about its willingness to pressure Kyiv into a deal. Since then, Russia has escalated aerial attacks across Ukraine and made significant gains, including pushing Ukrainian forces out of parts of Russia's Kursk Oblast. In both cases, the US Taliban deal and now the deal between Ukraine and Russia, Trump has weakened the US leverage and endangered its allies. But why? Shouldn't Trump want something in return? As we saw with President Biden, ending the war according to the terms Trump negotiated actually hurt, not helped Biden with American voters. The Afghan withdrawal was chaotic, hundreds of military assets left behind. Those who helped the Americans like interpreters were left to the Taliban's mercy. Not since the Vietnam War has the world seen such fragility in America's foreign policy. It doesn't make quite sense for the United States, after so much investment, to give away so much for so little in return. These are not the best deals, contrary to what Trump says. When the US withdrew from Vietnam, a war intended to contain the spread of communism, it still had a vested interest in combating the ideology on the global stage. It did not completely reverse course or side of its enemies. Instead, Trump has flipped the world order concerning allies that look to the US for leadership and support. Trump campaigned on a swift end to the war in Ukraine, repeatedly claiming it would have not happened if only he had been president. Yet the realities of diplomacy have proven more challenging than he thought. So many fear now that Trump will do in Ukraine what he did in Afghanistan. This leaves many to wonder, is this what Trump wants for Ukraine? And is the world ready to accept it? Thank you for watching. Creating this kind of work takes time, care, and a lot of effort. If it resonated with you, please support it by liking this video, subscribing, and turning on notifications. It means more than you know, and helps us keep telling stories from Ukraine.